Well, first of all, what kind of mythical powers does a Sun Devil have? We got to consider that.
No! Terrell! Run the road again!
Hey guys! Hey! I'm having a press conference, okay?
Their fat little girlfriends have some obvious advantages. For one thing, their fat little girlfriends are telling them what they want to hear.
It's Division I football! It ain't murals!
And welcome back to the Hoppy Huddle podcast. I'm Jake Hoppy. That's Ed Hoppy. And do you know what day it is? It's ACC Preview Day.
Hey, we got breaking news. First of all, Lincoln Riley just named about 5 minutes ago, named Miller Moss the starting QB at USC. So
That's what we thought.
But, well, anyway, we knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
But hey, we got to get some breaking news to if people are listening. So
Yes, exactly.
But it is ACC Preview Day. Ready to talk about the conference that everybody's ready to break up and realign and get rid of. So
the All of the Coasts Conference. You got the Gulf Coast, the West Coast, and the Atlantic Coast. I don't know, the Atlantic Coast and the conference doesn't really have a ring to it, but, you know, the new and expanded 16-team ACC, and boy, is the bottom big on this conference.
you want to talk, it's the Atlantic Coast Conference, and you said it's all over the place. And I feel like with two coasts, we have a big chasm. We've got the best teams and we got the worst teams, and there's a big divide in this conference, just like the conferences across the country. We got some teams that can contend for the national championship, and we got some teams that might not even contend for a group of 5 national championship if there was one.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes. There in this conference, there is the teams up top, a gap, a couple teams in the middle, a large gap, and there's no conference with more disparity of talent than the ACC.
No, this will be fun. There is definitely going to be some interesting games this year in this conference. I think there could be
some great games.
We got to look at Florida State. They're still a little upset about last year. What happened? Probably deserved a playoff spot last year. Can they make the playoffs this year? You've got Miami. A lot of people think they could be a conference champion this year. Then you got Clemson. Can they rebound from what everybody considers a subpar year? And then you got maybe a couple other potential surprises. Can this be NC State's year to knock on the door? And who knows? And then we'll talk about everybody's favorite team in Blacksburg that everybody seems to love, which we'll get to later.
Yeah. So you just wanna dive right into it?
Yeah, let's get into it. Unless we got anything else we got to talk about for the week. This is just a quick reminder. We will try to do we're gonna do Big 12. We're gonna do Big 12 preview? Was it Wednesday night maybe?
Yeah, Big 12 preview Wednesday night, and I think we'll throw in Notre Dame and maybe some 2 Group 5 highlights.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Have time,
and then we'll come back later, either Sunday or Monday next week. Almost a week from now, we'll go with our whole season preview with our playoff
and week 0 reactions.
Yes, and week 0 reaction. We've got a few games coming up, and especially the big one. I think will be Georgia Tech, Florida State, obviously.
Oh yeah,
and then we get ready for week 1, which is
Ireland.
Yes. So all right. So where do you want to go first in the ACC?
I think we have to go with the defending champion, Florida State Seminoles.
Okay.
The almost undefeated until their whole team opted out of the bowl game. And boy, is Florida State mad after last year and the playoff snub. In my personal opinion, I think they were snubbed. But they're still going to be a good team this year. They lose a lot to the draft, but they've recruited pretty well, especially the transfer portal. And they've got former ACC quarterback DJ Uiagalelei leading the team. But the largest offensive gap this year is the lack of elite wide receivers that they had last year. So can DJ make plays? That's kind of been the question through all of DJ's career. It's like he's been serviceable with talent around him, but can he make plays for himself? We'll see if that's the case. On defense, they're going to be good. They've got talent, but they're not going to be as elite as they have been probably the last 2 years. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking of Florida State. What do you think of their schedule?
Yeah, I mean, a couple things. I obviously I like the running back they got from Alabama. I think he's going to be a nice fit there.
Oh
Schedules
yeah,
schedule's a little challenging. They've got a 2-week stretch there, late September or October at SMU and then Clemson. And we're going to get to SMU later, but I don't think you sleep on that game at SMU. I think SMU is going to surprise some teams in this conference. And then they got to go, of course, to the matchup later in October against Miami. I mean, that's just a historically great rivalry.
Yeah.
This is Miami's. I think this is going to be a good year for Miami. And then they have to go to Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame's good. So this is not, you got 1, 2, 3, 4 games potentially that could be tough. And if you want to throw in Florida at the end of the season, who knows what that team will look like at the end of the season. So this is not an easy schedule. To me, this is a team that's recruited well. They're at the point now where they can reload a little bit. This doesn't necessarily have to be a down year, although it's hard to go. I don't think they're going to go 13-0 again. My issue with this team this year is DJ. We know what DJU is. He is not Jordan Travis.
Yeah.
He's not the kind of quarterback. I mean, he's not going to become a 75% completion percentage guy. He's not going to throw 35 touchdown passes. We know what he is at this point in his career. He's okay. I mean, he's going to be good enough to beat Boston College and probably Memphis and Cal and certainly North Carolina and Charleston Southern. But is he going to be able to make the big plays in the big games? I don't think so. I think they're going to lose a couple of games because of DJU, because he's just not going to get them to the next level. He couldn't do it at Clemson. Why do I think he can do it here?
I agree with you, but I'm gonna offer up a counterpoint on why, if he is successful, this will be the reason. The reason would be that Mike Norvell is a better in-game coach than he's had at either Clemson or at Oregon State. In-game, I said in-game coach. Dabo is not a strategic genius. Okay, everyone, he is a culture builder. He is a recruiter. He's a program builder. He's a CEO type. And Dabo is one of the best coaches of all time. But I think Mike Norvell is a better in-game coach.
So I guess Brent Venables is chopped liver then, is what you're telling me.
Brent Venables coaches defense. That doesn't affect DJ. You're telling me Clemson's offensive staff, while DJ was there, was really loaded? Loaded that they fired him right after fired all those guys right after he left?
Who was DJ's offensive coordinator? Tony Elliott.
Yeah, and how has Virginia's offense been? So my point kind of stands that if he is successful this year, more successful, it would be because Mike Norvell is an improvement on the coaching, and he's able to coach him up, and maybe that's the reason why. I agree with you that I think we know what DJ is, and I don't see him making big leap. But that would be the reason if it happened.
Yeah, if this team's good this year, it's because Roydell Williams at running back is going to be special, and this defense will be good again. I don't think people understood last year. All this stuff with FSU not being good enough to make the playoff, and should they have been there? They should have been there. And the reason they should have been is they had an elite defense last year. Passing, especially on the pass. They were the best in the country passing wise. I think if you actually look at the numbers, and the fact that they had ACC on their chest is one reason they didn't get in. And no wonder they want to leave the conference. I don't blame them. That hurt them last year. But Vegas has their win total 9.5 is the over under. I could see this team going 11-1, 10-2. I think the floor is clearly 9-3. I can't imagine this team going worse than 9-3. That find me SMU, Clemson, Miami, Notre Dame, 4 games. Are they going to lose 3 out of those 4? Probably not. I think they're 11-1.
I would say probably not. No.
And so if they're 11-1, 10-2 in this conference, they're probably right there competing for a spot in the conference title game more than likely.
Yeah, I'd say they are competing for a spot in the conference title game, but I am predicting that they will not make the conference title game.
Ooh, see now, I like that because when I ran the simulator, I had a lot of teams in this conference with 10 and 11 wins.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of teams with 4 wins. So I mean, there's a lot of teams the way the schedules work that can win 10 and 11 games because some of them don't play each other necessarily or play a lot of each other.
Yeah, I think the 2 teams that will beat Florida State are the 2 teams that will be in the ACC title game.
Mm-hmm. Well, which one do you want to go to first? I'd like to hear this.
Let's go to biggest preseason hype team every year. Is Texas back? Is Miami back? Is Miami back? That is the question that we ask every preseason for clickbait articles. And what do you think? Is Miami back?
Listen, you remember, I think I said this in the last podcast. There are 3 teams that have pushed their chips all in this year: Ohio State, Ole Miss, and Miami. Miami, they've been recruiting well. That's always been, Mario has recruited. I mean, you look at the recruiting class since he's been there. Recruiting has been elite upper level.
Yeah.
Number 4 ranked class, 7 class. I mean, they've been up there. The offensive line, defensive line, where you get out in the trenches, they are going to be the best in the ACC there. Then you go in and you go to the portal and you get Damian Martinez, 2-time All Pac-12 running back, to already bring him into a running back room, which I don't think was bad, but just needed a little upgrade. And then you bring in Cam Ward. So you've immediately upgraded a quarterback, running back. You add him to a wide receiver room, which I think is already good, with Restrepo and Jacoby George. You take a good defense, an elite defense, I think, a top 10, 15 defense already. Now you create an offense that can probably run the ball really well, can create plays and excitement on the offense. To me, this is the year. And I'm going to tell you what, here you go, baby. I'm all in. I'm bringing the turnover chain. I'm all in on the Canes this year, baby. It's back. This is my favorite for the team, ACC champion. Their schedule's workable. I don't know. What do you think? Before I get to their schedule and talk a little bit more predictions, what do you think of this team?
So I think Miami is extremely talented. I think they have, the best, I think probably the most proven quarterback in the conference, Cam Ward. I think their offensive line is elite, with possibly an future All-American at left tackle, Francis Mauigoa. And the running back, like I said, the running back from Alabama, they're good. They're a loaded defense. They are an extremely talented team. But Mario Cristobal is their head coach. And because of that, I think you have to take off like 2.5 points per game, because he makes non-strategic decisions.
He's like home field advantage,
He's Mario Cristobal negates. Well, Miami doesn't have a home field advantage in the first place, but Mario Cristobal is every game he just makes non-strategic decisions so that they have to completely dominate, or else the game gets too close and they could risk losing. I still think they make to the ACC title game. They're that talented. They're that good. Cam Ward's that good. But I think they lose. I don't think they win the ACC championship.
See, I think this is the year. I understand what you're saying about Cristobal, and believe me, this team goes 9-3, 8-4. It's a disappointment, I think, with all this talent. I just don't see how they don't. I think this team's too good. Now the schedule's interesting. They do open up the season at Florida. We talked about this in the SEC preview.
That's a trap game. That is the trappiest of games.
Yeah. That's a tough game. And even if they lose that game, I still could think they could be 11-1.
They're fine. Yeah, they could be 11.
Their season's not over if they lose it.
Yeah.
They've got Virginia Tech, who is everybody's media darling. We'll get to them in a little bit. But they have Virginia Tech at home. They then get Florida State at home. Yes, they go to Louisville, but Louisville just lost their top wide receiver yesterday. I'm not even sure he'll be back in time. Other than that, again, this is a manageable schedule. I mean, Louisville's and at Florida are their toughest games. They get the two other favorites supposedly are the tougher teams at home. This is a workable schedule for the Hurricanes.
I agree, which is why I think they will make the ACC title game. And I'm not saying they can't go 11-1 or 10-2. I'm probably not. Probably 11-1, honestly. Like, who else are they going to? I mean, unless their 2 losses are Florida State, really. But
yeah, I mean, 10-2. I mean, that could get them. 10-2 could still get you the championship, maybe. But I think 11-1 is kind of what I'm thinking.
I think 11 is possible. I just don't trust them in the postseason against elite teams because of Mario's coaching.
Yeah, but this team is so talented. I mean,
they are so talented.
The roster.
They are.
They haven't had a team like this in Coral Gables in a long time.
Yeah. I like Miami. I'll be rooting for them, except against Florida. And they might do it. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. And Cam Ward is the quarterback was the difference maker. And maybe Mario's learned a thing or two. But Mario is, I don't know. That Georgia Tech loss last year just scares me for picking them to ascend to conference and national title contention.
Yeah, I understand. Okay. All right. Well, we got the 2 big dogs out of the way. Where do you want to go to next?
All right, let's go. God's name, image, and likeness. Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers are back with another year, and they were not as good as the consistency we've come to expect from them last year.
4 losses.
Can they bounce back?
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at the losses last year. It was the first that first game against Duke. What did they turn the ball over? I can't remember how many times they turned the ball over on Labor Day night.
Oh yeah,
but they kept turning the ball over in the red zone. Then they lost to FSU, but they had that FSU game almost won. The kicking
I know they
game
had positive post-game win expectancy in both those first 2 losses.
Yeah. So, I mean, you turn a couple of those games around, all of a sudden, it's not as bad a season as you think.
Yeah.
This team, last year wasn't the defense again. Defense was continued to be a strength for this Clemson Tiger group. It was the offense. And I just don't know, are you going to get anything out of this Riley offense in year 2? So are we going to see more from Cade Klubnik? Can Cade Klubnik take that next step in this Garrett Riley offense being there a full year? I like when you have an offensive coordinator returning, a quarterback returning in the same system. I always think that helps. Cade Klubnik just a little bit better than DJU and not really going to ever progress. That's what I'm afraid of. Now,
I don't know.
It helps that you got Brian Wesco coming in. I mean, I think this is one of their stud wide receivers. And we see a lot of these big, great wide receivers across the country. I think this is a big difference maker, perhaps, for them. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I think this team can still be good this year. I think the schedule, obviously, you give me your thoughts, and then I will break down the schedule.
Okay. Yeah, so I am actually pretty bullish on Clemson this year. I think the year 2 jump with offensive coordinator QB combo is real. I think Klubnik had really limited outside offensive receivers last year. I think Wesco's huge. They also brought in another blue chip receiver, a high 4-star guy. That's pretty good as well. They've got a good offensive line, which is something that this year, which not great, but good, which is something they've been lacking the last couple of years at Clemson. I think this is the year. Clemson's defense is still be good. Clemson still recruits, top 10 or around top 10 classes pretty much every year. They have elite talent. They retain that talent. And with the weapons coming out on offense, second year in the system, I think Klubnik's going to make a jump. And I know it's kind of tough projecting the QB to make a jump, but if there was ever a year for a QB to make a jump, second year in the system, extra weapons added, a better O-line. That's like all of the things that you need for a QB to be successful. And I'm betting that he will be. And I think Clemson will get to 10 wins pretty handily, and maybe even 11-1 or 12-0, depending on how good Klubnik pops.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they've got Georgia start out the season in Atlanta in the neutral game.
That's going to be the tough one because
they're not winning that game.
You say that, but week 1 can be weird.
Yeah, they're not beating Georgia. Come on, I mean,
you're probably right, but they're only like what, 13 and a half, 12 and a half point favorites. Like, that's bigger things have happened.
I understand bigger things will happen unless Carson Beck is going to, catch monkeypox tomorrow. I think that's going to happen.
All right. I'm high on Clemson this year. I've been drinking the Dabo Kool-Aid. I think they're going to be very good this year.
I do too. And I mean, what was their over-unders? 8.5 at FanDuel. I think 10-2 is achievable. I mean, you look at Georgia's probably a loss. They have NC State at home. I think NC State's a good team, but they have them at home. I think they're usually pretty good with them at home.
Clemson never loses at home, almost never. It's like twice in the last 10 years.
Yeah. So they go on the road to Florida State. To me, that's probably a loss. They go on the road to Virginia Tech. I don't think they're going to lose at Virginia Tech. Just because you have a bunch of people stomping to a song doesn't mean you can translate that to football and field play. And
ask Penn State in the whiteout game.
Yeah,
I mean 500.
The talent level is just so much better than Virginia Tech's. So there's really no other tough games. I mean, Stanford, Wake, Virginia, Louisville's coming to Clemson. I think Louisville's team's a good team. But again, the two tough games, the two teams that I think could be challenging, NC State and Louisville, they're both at home. So I think you're looking at a 9-3, 10-2 team. They're probably just on the outside. behind Florida State and Miami. Maybe if because they might have tiebreakers, I think they're probably not looking at a conference title game. Would be my prediction.
Okay. Yes, I have Florida State and Clemson flipped because I see Clemson as being more talented this year, bringing more people back.
Well, that game on October 5th may decide who faces Miami. Perhaps.
Yeah, I think so. Where do you want to go to next?
Well, I mean, there's 3 other teams that I think are really fascinating this year that have pretty high ceilings, but also could, you never know which way. I think Louisville, SMU, and NC State, depending on what happens, I think could all be in,
Yeah, I kind of can't separate them really.
Yeah, let's go Louisville first.
Okay. Yeah, so Jeff Brom, after a successful first season at Louisville, he's back. And I just am not sure. I think there's going to be a year 2 drop. I mean, the schedule is not awful, but they play Notre Dame, Miami, Clemson, and they still got to get over the Kentucky hump, which they haven't done in a couple of years. So it's not like a super easy schedule that they had last year. And I believe in Jeff Brom's play calling, and I feel like he'll have a good passing offense. My concern is the lines of scrimmage. The good team, they'll be fine against the lesser ranked teams, but against the really elite team, against Notre Dame, against Clemson, against Kentucky, they're going to face tough defensive lines. And I don't know if their QB is going to have time.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things stand out on this team. One, last year they were the benefactor of an easy schedule. This year, it flips this year. I think last year they were their rushing defense was outstanding. I think their passing defense was the weakness. What I think gets overlooked with Jeff Brom is how well they've it's not the high school recruiting, it's the portal recruiting he's done.
They've been on the portal. Yeah,
he's brought in a lot of talent, continues to do that, and so I think this team really, despite losing some of their defensive stars, I think they've done a good job in the portal. So I think they're ready to go. Now I don't like the injury yesterday, and I'm gonna forget the guy's name. I'm gonna apologize. I'm gonna forget the wide receiver. Their wide receiver 1 is out for like 6 to 8 weeks, maybe collarbone. I think that hurts them a little bit. But I mean, to me, they're going to beat most of the teams on their schedule. They go to Notre Dame, they go to Clemson, and then they get Miami at home. To them have a really special season. They're going to win 2 out of 3, and that's a tall task. But I like this team. I like what Brom is doing there. I think where was FanDuel? FanDuel has them at 8.5. I think they could go 9 wins, maybe 10 wins if they really piece it together here and beat Kentucky. Maybe Kentucky's one of those ones where they can win, and then maybe they steal another one of those between Notre Dame, Miami, and Clemson. So 9 or 10 wins is where I see it. I think this is a team that's above everybody else and most of the other ACC teams.
Okay, I can get behind that, and I think part of my confidence in them is going to be Brom's coaching, and they have good players in the portal as well. But Brom is an excellent coach, and he'll coach them up, and I think they'll be good.
Yeah. So,
all right, where do you want to hit?
Well, let's
NC
go
State
or
SMU.
Let's go to NC State, because this is the team. In all these expanded conferences, there's always winners and losers every year when it comes to the schedule. And some people are just the benefactor of a good schedule, an easier schedule, and some are like just penalized. Florida was just decimated this year with a hard schedule. I think NC State is getting a really easy schedule this year. This is the Cupcake Award. I mean, now granted, they're out of conference as Tennessee, so that's not doing them any favors. But absent that, they don't play Miami, they don't play Florida State, I don't think they play Louisville. And they don't play SMU, and they don't play Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
I mean, Dave Doran, this is your year. This is the year when you're avoiding all these teams that are supposedly among the top betting favorites in the conference, and you only got one of them. Now, granted, it's on the road, but I mean, look at their schedule. It's Wake Forest, Syracuse, at Cal, Stanford, Duke, Georgia Tech, North Carolina, at Clemson. That's their ACC opponents.
Yeah.
That's a great schedule.
It's a pretty favorable schedule, and NC State has not broken through to the 10 win ceiling yet. And if there's ever a year to do it, it's this year.
Yeah.
So we'll see if they can do it. I don't know The Clemson's a loss, right? And that's pretty much the only guaranteed loss on their schedule.
Well, Tennessee,
right?
Tennessee's probably a loss.
Tennessee.
I think
as
Tennessee's
well.
better. I mean,
Yeah.
you never know what you're going to get, but in that second game of the year, theoretically, it's a neutral site in Charlotte. It's probably equidistant. A lot of Tennessee fans are going to fill that stadium.
Yeah. I'd say so. Probably 2 losses, but
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, but if they do that, I think the rest of the schedule. I mean, I don't see. I mean, could they stub their toe somewhere? Absolutely. At Georgia Tech, I mean,
Yeah.
don't take Georgia Tech for granted. I don't think they're a given loss. The team plays hard, but
Yeah.
you've got here's where it comes down to. You got Grayson McCall coming in. Can he look the part like he did at Coastal Carolina? I like they've got a big time wide receiver one in KC Concepcion. I mean, this team's got weapons. And the schedule's favorable. So
Yes.
this is where I think they're going to get above that threshold. Now, is 10-2? I don't know the tiebreakers in the ACC, Jake, and we haven't gotten this deep into it because I just didn't really want to try to predict things. But at 10-2,
Yeah.
and you lose to Clemson, you lose to Tennessee. But let's say
That's
Florida
one
State's
conference
10-2.
loss.
Yeah, you get one conference loss, but Florida State, I don't know how those tiebreakers are going to work out. I don't think the strength of schedule is going to be very good.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I don't think it'll get you in the playoff.
We got some questions in the
Okay.
chat. So we got asked, can we talk about the Commonwealth teams? And we'll get to them.
those in a little bit.
We
We're
will.
going in
We're
order of preference here. We'll get to
going
it.
in order of how good the teams are.
Yeah, we're going to get to Virginia Tech in a minute. Don't worry. We're going to get
Yeah.
to that. And then we'll talk about
Yes.
the Who's. Not going to forget those teams. But
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about, from the great state of Texas, the SMU Mustangs. And if there was ever a team, if you think that you can't buy happiness, don't tell the Dallas Boosters, because boy, are they trying. Accepting no money in the ACC for 7 straight years is insane. Doing it while having the lowest enrollment of any school except Wake Forest, also insane. They essentially have like 40 fans, but they're all billionaires. Will it work? We'll find out. I'm a little more bearish on SMU just because of the jump from Group of 5 to Power 5. Almost all cases, it has not gone well the first year. And I could see them being extremely successful even in year 2. I mean, look, even TCU, who like historically is a Power 5 team, when they jumped from the WAC to the Big 12, they did not have a great, even with Gary Patterson, they were not that good their first year in the league. Same thing with when Utah jumped into the Pac-12. It took them like 2 years. I think SMU will be an annual conference contender, but not this year. So, and I think they have the potential to get some upsets and really get somebody, because they have that talent. Rhett Lashley is a good play caller, but I think they're going to finish behind NC State and Louisville this year, and maybe behind Tech, depending on how it shakes out.
all right, Jay.
I know they have an easy schedule. I understand.
let's play the game. Find the losses.
Okay.
Let's go down the schedule. At Nevada. Nope.
Win.
Houston Christian. Can you
Win.
BYU at home?
Possible. I know.
No. Come on.
Look, BYU.
Oh,
They have a bunch of 30-year-olds on the lines of scrimmage who
All
came
right.
back from Mission.
well, I'm giving them a win. TCU at home.
I mean, TCU is not that great this year, but you
I
never
that's a
know.
rivalry. I know that's a rivalry game. Let's go. Okay, Florida State at home, which
Loss.
it's probably a loss, but
It's a loss.
but-
They're losing to Florida State.
they're probably losing to Florida State.
They're going to lose to Florida State.
But Florida State's that's a look ahead game for Florida State. You got to remember before the Clemson, and they're on the road. So I'm counting those as a loss at Louisville. Do you really think they're that big of an underdog at Louisville?
Yes. SMU played 4 Power 5 teams last year,
Okay,
including Illinois, and got beat in
Okay.
all of them.
so let's go with Florida State and Louisville as losses. Now find me the
Okay.
next loss at Stanford, at Duke.
Hey, Manny Diaz is not a bad coach.
Come on. You are kidding me. Pitt, home. Boston College.
Hey,
home.
Pat Narduzzi teams play
Oh,
tough. Okay,
You're reaching for it now. At Virginia
that's
and
a win.
Cal at home.
That's a win.
Okay. So you obviously have a different opinion than FanDuel. FanDuel's got over and under 8.5. Okay.
I hard under.
Hard under. See, this is where you and I are going to strongly disagree.
They're going to lose 2 of these random games against like these teams that you would think they would beat just because they're not used to the demand of a Power 5 schedule every week.
Listen, 8.5 over and under. You need to bet that. Okay. They are going over. They're going to be over by, I dare say, over by the end of October.
I will put my own money on SMU under.
You have got to be kidding me. This schedule this is like NC State, man. You better get it this year. And that power spread that Rhett Lashley runs, these teams in the ACC are going to be running for the hills. They're feeding on the bottom of the ACC, other than Florida State and Louisville.
They're going to run straight. They're going to run straight into Pitt's defense and lose 10-7.
Oh, all right.
It's gonna be the most Pitt game of all time. SMU has no fans. They have no home field advantage. They're like Miami, but with less fans.
It doesn't matter. I'm telling you what. This is, and here's the other thing there's another thing you're not thinking of. We're talking about the offense. First of all, this SMU team returns. They're 10th in the country. I know their offense
is good.
They're 10th in the country in returning production. And seen on defense, their defense ranked. If you look at their defense, was actually better than you think last year. So I think this is a team that I think can win 9 or 10 games. Now they're not going to win the conference, but I'd be careful in these ACC teams. I think just because they're coming into the conference, there's going to be some surprise here.
I know Preston Stone is good, but just I don't know. I'm not a believer. I'm not a believer. Look at all 4 of the teams that jumped up last year into the Big 12.
I know.
They all stunk.
But they all didn't have offenses like this, and they didn't have Rhett Lashley. Now, here's my last, we'll leave SMU. I'll leave it on this. I think Rhett Lashley's, let's say they go 9-3. If that happens, you know where Rhett Lashley went to school, don't you? Do you remember?
No. Where'd he go to school?
He was a quarterback at Arkansas. He played backup to Matt Jones in the early 2000s. So I'm guessing they're going to go 9-3, and Rhett Lashley will either start the 2025 season as the new head coach of the Arkansas Razorbacks, or he could be the new head coach at the University of Florida next year. I'm telling you what, he's going to be the hot coach if this team goes 9-3.
If he's trying to get hired away, the Dallas Boosters just write him a bigger check.
Jake, they're not going to be able to. When that SEC, you think about who's the hot coaches this year. We don't have any right away. I'm telling you, a guy that goes 9-3 like him, a young guy running a power spread.
Dude, he may end up at Baylor.
Well, that's the other one. Baylor also would be in the mix, I think, because
if Dave Aranda gets fired, they might just hire Rhett Lashley.
Because if you're Rhett Lashley, do you want to be on SMU and the ACC with the ACC dying in 5 years? Now, maybe it's a short-term issue and he wants to ride it out for a few years. But mark my words. Mark this clip. At the end of the season, he's going to be a hot name on a lot of teams. Whatever openings are there, he'll be a hot name.
Yeah, I could see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. What happens.
All right, let's get to them.
Why don't we move on to the team with the ugliest colors and the worst mascot?
Yes.
And I'm not biased at all. The Virginia Tech Hokies. They're getting a lot of preseason hype, and I'm kind of angry that Baylor let Kyron Drones go because I saw him play in spring games for multiple years, and he was good, and I don't understand why we never started him. I think because just the scheme didn't really fit what Jeff Grimes wanted to run there. Yeah, Kyron Drones is good. He's kind of inconsistent as a passer, but he is an electric runner, and with the right drawn-up plays, you can really do some damage with him.
All right, you're ready for me to talk. This is the team that everybody's predicting. Oh, they finished the year so strong. All the love. We think this is a high pick. A team that can win the ACC this year. And their schedule is very easy. I mean, they open at Vanderbilt. Now, don't discount their level. I mean, their talent level is about the same as Vanderbilt. So don't discount that, first of all.
That's a trap game for sure, because
that is a trap.
Vanderbilt is way under talented in the SEC, but they are a middle of the pack ACC team.
Yeah, I gotta go back to Vanderbilt's talent level. I need to find that here. If I can get my hands on that quickly. Where's Vanderbilt? I'm gonna find that here because I think that's everybody goes. Well, it's just an easy victory, and I'm going. You know what? Don't discount Vandy.
Virginia Tech does not have SEC talent, no matter how much they want to LARP as an SEC team.
Yeah, Vanderbilt, here's Vandy's last, I'll give you the last 4 recruiting classes. 48, 30, and this is I think this is power 5. I think, or maybe this is all 48, 32nd, 52nd, and 40th and their 5-year average is 42. Okay. Now let's go back up to, I'm going to get back up to Virginia Tech here. It's going to take me a few pages, but
VT is trash. I agree.
Yeah. Is that what we're saying in the comments here?
They're saying in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody's just assuming that's going to win. Now, I think they probably will win that game, but everybody just assumes that. Look at what is Virginia Tech's recruiting? 45, 36, 38, 45. 45 is their 5-year average. It's not a big talent gap.
No.
So Vandy, then they go on the road. Then they play Rutgers. Let me tell you what.
Rutgers is spicy. I'm high on Rutgers. You know I'm high on Rutgers.
And I am too. Go back to the previous podcast. Rutgers beat them by 19 last year. Easily. Okay.
Scarlet Knights, man.
Yeah. So then let's break down. All this talk was they were so hot finishing the year last year. Go look at last year's schedule. They got hot last year when they started playing the bottom of the ACC. Forest, Syracuse, who fired their coach. Boston College is dreadful. Virginia was terrible. Look at the end of the season when they ran off all those wins. Pitt. Who did they lose to at the end of the season? They got drubbed. They lost NC State. They got drubbed by Louisville, and they got killed by Florida State. So everybody talks about how they just were so good at the end of the year. Were they really good, or did they just beat up on the worst teams in the ACC? I think that's what it is. They didn't have any good victory. I mean, where was their good victory last year? Tell me.
I can't tell you.
You can't. But so the national media has written a narrative for this team that, oh, this is the up-and-coming team now. And they probably will, because their schedule's so weak. Let's say they beat Vanderbilt and Rutgers, which is, I think, plausible. I mean, they could lose. What's the other game? They go to Miami. They'll lose that game. They play Clemson home. They'll lose that game. So could you see a 10-2? Yeah, that's possible just because the schedule's so weak again. But I also could see 8-4 because they're playing.
They're just not going to be competitive for the top of the conference though, like a lot of people are saying in the preseason.
No. And I'm sure our chat blowing up here.
Yeah.
Ed is my favorite content creator. I don't know who that is, but I'm just calling as I see it, man. And it has nothing to do with their but it's just, you got to look at some of these teams and just look through the schedule and look through these stats. And I think they'll slip up somewhere. I think they'll probably be 9-3 would be my guess, because they'll lose another one somewhere along the way to a Georgia Tech or to a Rutgers or a Vanderbilt that everybody else in the national media thinks they're going to lose.
And I will admit to some degree of bias, but I don't think they're going to be that good. Just a little bit biased.
Just a little.
I don't know.
Just a little bit.
All right.
So we're at the point now where I think you've got a big drop off in this conference.
I think you got 2 more teams and then a drop off.
You think
Well, I think there's another tier. There's a drop and there's another tier with 2 teams, and then there's a real big drop.
Oh, hey, and we got in our chat playing ODU. I forgot ODU beats them regularly. Yeah, don't discount ODU though.
Dude, if they lose the ODU game, it's over. It's over.
That is so right. Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm reading the chat and they're throwing it out. So
yeah, I think the next level is Carolina and Georgia Tech for opposite reasons. Georgia Tech plays really hard with no talent, and North Carolina doesn't try at all with a lot of talent.
Yeah.
And the end result is mediocrity with both of them. I think they'll be okay. Both of them may be good for an upset or 2. Probably bowling, I would guess. They're on the fringe there.
Yeah, they're probably both 7-5, 6-6 teams, I think, when you break them down.
Yeah.
Let's go to North Carolina. And here's my problem with them is way too much talent on this roster and recruiting over the past few years. They've just underachieved.
Yeah. Well, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I would say, Mac Brown is known for really maximizing low-ranking recruiting classes. Oh, wait, no, he's not. He's known for recruiting an insane amount of talent and then not coaching them up. And that's what he's done his whole career. And now that he's at Carolina, he's doing the same thing. And I guess they're better than they were, because when he was hired, they were god-awful. But, mediocre is better than awful, but it's still mediocre. And at some point, you got to reset the clock of expectations. And it would not surprise me if he parts ways or rides off into the sunset or retires at the end of the year. And I like the momentum going on at Georgia Tech. They signed a 5-star offensive lineman, mostly because I think they paid him, $400K a year. But I mean, they've got momentum this year, like their head coach, Jeff Collins, or no. Yeah, Jeff Collins, right?
No. Brent Key.
Brent Key. They fired
They
Collins.
fired Collins. Yeah. Collins is back at North Carolina as the defensive coordinator.
I think that's actually a good hire, but I don't know. I think Georgia Tech will outperform their talent, and Carolina will underperform their talent. They're kind of like mirror images of each other.
Yeah, so I'll go back to North Carolina. At their window of opportunity, they had 2 NFL draft picks, Sam Howell and Drake May, and they couldn't get it done with a lot of other talent around them. And I think that window is closing. I don't think they have anything special at quarterback. I mean, we've seen Max Johnson before. He was at Texas A&M, and he really couldn't carry them. So I don't expect this team to be anything great. I mean, are they going to win some games? Yes, because they're playing in the ACC, and they get Boston College and Wake Forest and Virginia. Although they go to Virginia, they just can't win at Virginia. They get Pitt, and they get played North Carolina Central and Charlotte. They're going to get enough wins to probably get to a bowl, but I just don't think their defense just isn't good enough, and they haven't fielded a top 25 defense nationally since 2009. I mean,
really?
Yes,
it's been that long.
It's been that long. So I think well, it's been a long time, and so they to me are just underachievers, chronic underachievers. I think you're right. I mean, Mac Brown's great. You love him. He's great on TV. I think he says the right things and he can recruit. But
Such a nice guy.
Yeah, there's just I don't think this team's going to be much of a challenge to those other teams we mentioned before. I love Brent Key at Georgia Tech. He is revitalizing that program. They're kicking butt in recruiting, and they're obviously they've got an NIL program together. They're paying people, and this team can be scary on a particular day. Like you look out, and what people don't realize is Haynes King, the quarterback there, put up some ridiculous numbers last year. But he also can turn the ball over sometimes. So,
yeah, you kind of get what you get with him.
But hey, if you get one of those games where he's not turning over, look out. So I think that team, now they got a brutal draw. I mean, they play at
it's
Louisville,
rough.
They play Notre Dame, they play at Virginia Tech, they play Miami, they play NC State, they've got Georgia.
Florida State.
Yeah, they got Florida State this weekend. I mean, they've got the worst schedule in the ACC.
It's really rough. And of course you end with Georgia, which, rivalry, but like, come on.
Yeah. So, but I think this team will play hard. They've got some momentum out in the recruiting. I like where they're going. I hope they can get to 6 wins. I think it'll be tough, but I think they can get there because I think they'll beat enough teams on the bottom of the ACC. So I am going 6-6 in my predictions.
I agree with you. Have a thought that I haven't had about Georgia Tech in my lifetime, which is their program has upward momentum. Like they seem to be moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
How? It's essentially Vanderbilt of the ACC. They don't even have an art school. I don't know how they're doing it. Like they just found a bunch of engineers that lift. Like I don't get it.
Yeah. I think there's some opportunity there, especially being in Georgia and being that part of the country.
Yeah,
I think you can find a certain niche. I think they can be successful. They're not going to be Georgia. They're not going to be 12-0, but can they be competitive? I think they can.
Yeah, I mean, follow, I guess, like the Kentucky model, I guess. Go after the second tier guys that the big boys in the area aren't targeting. So,
okay. All right. We still haven't got through half this conference, it feels like.
Oh, man, this is such a huge conference.
So we need to talk about Virginia, and then we got a bunch of other teams that I don't even really care if we spend a whole lot of time on, unless somebody in our chat really wants us to break down.
I want to hit one team real quick thought on Boston College. I've been a Bill O'Brien hater since like time immemorial. Okay. Fade Bill O'Brien. I have never believed he's been a good coach.
Yeah.
He was horrible at the Texans. He was horrible as offensive coordinator for Bama. He was horrible as offensive coordinator for the Patriots. I don't understand how he keeps getting jobs. He's like the guy that's like the brother of the king that like is terrible at his job, but keeps getting like he's keeps getting jobs because he's connected. He's like Hunter Biden. Like he's not good at anything, but he just keeps getting jobs. I don't know how he does it. How do you get that gig? Like, sorry, I just had to rant about Bill O'Brien for a second. Why did Boston College hire him? I have no idea. good luck, I guess. But like
he's like one of those, princes in a kingdom where, he just kind of hangs on, and he's got other people who are doing the power, and he's
the advisor that does nothing.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, there's no talent here. I mean, they haven't this Boston College hasn't recruited very well. They certainly didn't get a lot in the portal, and their schedule's not very good. So this has got 4-8 written all over it at best.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
Now, before we get to Virginia, the other team that I think is interesting is I do think Syracuse is interesting. I find them, I don't think their talent level is great, although at least it wasn't before, at least it wasn't until, Babers was recruiting terrible. And, he was just falling off the mat. I do like Fran Brown. He's a young coach, came from Georgia.
Oh, I love him. He's awesome.
And he turned that recruiting class, and he took that recruiting class up to 37th, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for Syracuse and the ACC, that's pretty impressive. And he did a great job in the portal. They were 25th in the portal. Now, the schedule is pretty favorable. Another one that doesn't have to play Florida State, doesn't have to play Clemson, doesn't play SMU. Now, they get Virginia Tech at home, which, again, we don't know what kind of team Syracuse will be towards the end of the season. They do go on the road to Miami. But, again, it's not a terrible schedule. They only face 3 of the ACC's top 8.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a schedule that's manageable for Syracuse. So I think this is one that you could see them maybe get to a bowl, and that would be good for Fran Brown. Now, I think if he does well there, I'm seeing him being with a lot of upward mobility. I think he would be hired away pretty
especially
quickly.
Like if you can recruit top 40 at Syracuse. Yeah, he's gonna be one of those guys that like the SEC types are gonna be looking at.
Yeah, like, or Big Ten or
Big Ten. Yeah.
Or I think if he does a good job, he just seems like the right guy. I mean, I think Georgia was sorry they lost him, but you can't stop the guy from taking a head coaching job. So All right, well let's jump. I know there was people in the chat that wanted us to talk about Virginia. Let's talk about the Hoos. My beloved Hoos. Oh.
Wahoo!
Yeah.
It's gonna be a long year.
You want to start, Jake, and I'll jump in?
Yeah. So all you have to do is just look at their schedule, and it's Richmond, which should be a win, but has caused problems before. Wake Forest probably lost. Maryland probably lost. Coastal Carolina at Coastal. That's a trap game. You should win, but like at Boston College, you could win Boston College.
Yeah,
you could. Louisville lost, at Clemson lost, Carolina lost, at Pitt. Yeah, but Virginia's even worse.
I know.
Like Carolina,
they're that anywhere.
They're that bad. Like Carolina could show out and put in scrimmage level effort, and the talent gap is just so huge. Like Virginia, essentially, like they have the roster of a Group of 5 team. Like the
recruiting has been terrible since Tony got there.
Oh, it's
22, they were 66th, 64th, and 88th last year. It's terrible.
Yeah. Like there are multiple, like 10 Group of 5 teams, 5 or 8, I think, Group of 5 teams that have better recruiting rankings than them. And like, yeah, if you go down the rest of the schedule, at Pitt, I mean, probably a loss. Pat Narduzzi teams play hard. Virginia may have given up by then. At Notre Dame, lost. SMU probably lost. At Virginia Tech,
that's a loss.
That's a loss. They never win that route. As much as I would love to beat Virginia Tech, it's not happening. Like, you're looking at 3-9, 2-10. Like, and then Tony Elliott's going to get fired, which he only got the extra year this year was because of the tragedy that you had happen there.
This is a bad team. I mean, last year they led James Madison, 35-24 in the fourth and lost. They led BC 14-0 and lost. They had the NC State game, but then they committed 3 personal fouls in the last minute and lost 24-21. I about lost my mind in that game. They took Miami to overtime and lost. They led number 11 Louisville and by 7 in the fourth quarter and lost 31-24. I mean, there were moments last year where this team was playing hard, and then there were moments where like, oh my gosh, you got to do better than that. Here's the talent isn't there. And
it's not.
That's one problem. Even though if they're trying to play hard, which I do think they are. The other thing they got is they've got to play Calandria. I'm sorry. Musket maybe nice and safe, but Calandry is the only one. While he can do some crazy stuff, he's the only one that gives them.
Yeah, he is F it, we ball personified.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, he at least gives them a shot. So, but the schedule just doesn't line up. And I think I don't know Tony Elliott. He seems like a nice guy, but this is just the recruiting's hasn't been going in the right direction.
No
Transfer portal. I don't know what their NIL game is. They're losing ground, and a change.
What NIL game?
I mean, Bronco had this team. I remember Bronco had this team in the ACC championship game.
9 wins.
9 wins. An Orange Bowl a game against Florida. This has gone so wrong for the last 5 years now. Since Bronco left, and this program deserves better than this. And it's frustrating as someone who's been a fan since a long, long time. They just deserve better. That's quite funny. Yeah. It's going to be sad. It's gonna be another rough year. We got to hope basketball season starts soon. So,
yeah. Going around the rest of the ACC, we've got Pitt, Cal, Duke, Wake Forest, Stanford. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think Cal can be a tough out at times. I think they're okay. I think Manny Diaz is a pretty good coach down in Duke, but I think he's got a rebuilding job there.
Yeah.
Obviously I like Malik Murphy, the transfer. It'll be interesting to see what they can do with him at quarterback.
He showed a lot of potential at Texas. He
showed potential at times, and then you get other times.
And then didn't at other times. So
yeah,
it's like,
so it's hit or miss. But I think we're talking about a lot of teams at Stanford. We're just talking about teams that just don't have – there's a big talent gap between a lot of those teams and the rest of the conference. And so I think that's why I think I've got teams at the top of the conference that win 9-10, and you got a lot of these teams that are winning 3, 4, 5 games and not making
Yeah. Goals. I think Pat Narduzzi may be on the hot seat after this year. If he doesn't turn in a good season, because I don't see them winning that many games, and they didn't win that many last year. They don't play an exciting offense that can keep you entertaining. He kind of refuses to play a modern offense, famously in his quotes. I think Wake Forest they're not very talented, but they do have a good coach, so maybe there's a possibility of some crazy upset but like. I don't know. I just don't see Stanford is just the roster is just done. Like they're trying to recover, but like
there's so I've got Miami. I mean, I've got Miami winning this conference. And we'll talk about my playoff teams from this conference later in our playoff preview. But to me, there's a lot of separation between the top and bottom in this league, and it's going to be fun. I think there's some great games with some additions here and some newcomers, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, I'm excited. We get the first big game of the year is this Saturday, Georgia Tech and Florida State in Ireland,
which will be a good game. I have Clemson winning the conference over Miami, mostly on the back of an improved Clemson offense and strategic Mario mistakes.
You are a believer.
I am a believer, but you have to be a believer sometimes. All right. I can't be a hater on every team. So Clemson, Dabo is one of the best coaches in the sport. Clemson is extremely talented. They brought in their offense is almost completely back at every position, and except Shipley. But I think, anyway, I did my Clemson spiel, but so I think Clemson wins.
So, okay. Well, let's see. I think that's kind of it on the ACC. I don't feel a need to break down everybody, but let's see. We have anything in the trash here? I mean, in the chat here. I'm seeing, let's see. Hokies. Okay. We had quite a little bit of Hokie talk in there.
Yeah.
All right. No, I think we're good there. All right. I got to give a shout out to a couple of our female listeners, Vera and Abby. I think they listen from time to time. We thank you for our female listeners. So next up, we're going to do Big 12 Wednesday night.
All right.
And that's going to be the conference of chaos, as I'll call it.
It is the conference of fun is what it is.
That's right.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, follow on Twitch, follow on Instagram at Real Hopster, follow on Instagram at The Hoppy Huddle, follow on Twitter at Real Hopster. Post cuts on Instagram, and you can watch the full recording on YouTube in a little bit after I download and upload it. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.